So my review for the Surface Laptop 7 is now live. A quick version is that I really like this laptop. If you want to see my full review, link to that is in the description down below. But many questions still remain about the general compatibility of this laptop running the Snapdragon X Elite with various accessories and potentially applications as well. In this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a whole bunch of different accessories. We're going to plug them in. We're going to see if they function. We're also going to do a handful of applications. No, I'm not going to be like firing up some sort of coding apps or Blender, things like that, things that I have no knowledge about. But there are some simple, basic ones that a lot of people probably use that I think are worth addressing. So let's start off with those software things first, and then we'll move to like hardware peripheral accessories. So the first thing I want to address are VPNs, and I'm just going to take a shortcut here. We have this article on Android Authority, link in the description down below. This is as of June the 19th. Most VPNs do not work on these Copilot Plus PCs. We actually have statements from a few different VPN companies, ExpressVPN, NordVPN, and PIA. They all say they are working on an ARM-compatible client, but for now, those are not released. So if you want to know if your VPN of choice functions on these computers, what you need to do is just go look and see if they've released that ARM-compatible version. Because for whatever reason, x86 emulation does not seem to be a thing that works for these applications. So one thing I've heard that does not work is the Google Drive desktop application. And yeah, before I get very far at all, it just straight up tells me, zoom the wrong way, Windows architecture is not supported. So that is one that is not going to work, but one that I think is working that kind of surprised me is Chrome Remote Desktop. I'll turn this so you can't see all of my fingerprints that are on my OnePlus Open, but we should be able to, yes indeed, look at that. We are controlling remote desktopping here with my OnePlus Open. Now I will say that as I'm moving this cursor around, it looks a little bit laggy, a little bit low frame rate, maybe because it's running emulated, maybe it's not going to work as well, although it does look nice and smooth on my phone. I say that and then it lagged. So maybe performance, your mileage may vary, but it does actually function, and that is, I got to admit, a little bit surprising to me. I do wonder, having that running in the background waiting to be functional, being that it's an emulated app, will that negatively impact your battery life? That's possible. One other thing that I will quickly mention, even though I've talked about it a couple times already, when you're dealing with games and compatibility with games, it was kind of surprising how many of them just installed straight from Steam did work relatively well. The biggest thing that you kind of have to watch for is, does this game have any sort of kernel level anti-cheat, or just in general anti-cheat software? BattleEye and things like that are going to be a problem until the people making those anti-cheats have an ARM compatible version. But even still, a lot of sort of indie games or older games or even somewhat recent AAA games are going to be largely playable, in particular if you use that automatic super resolution setting there inside your graphics settings. If you want to hear more about that, I would suggest checking out my full review. One app that I use every day that I would be remiss if I did not mention it is Streamlabs OBS. As you can see, we're running just fine. It's an x86 app. It's being emulated, but no problems at all. So I've got a couple more apps I just want to quickly point out to you. We're looking at Adobe's actual website talking about this, and specifically, we're looking for this section here. When does Adobe plan to release other apps for Copilot Plus PCs? These are the ARM PCs, and they have several things listed. Just notice what the dates are for some and then no dates for others. So things like Adobe Premiere, supposed to be coming, don't exactly know when. So at this point in the video, I was going to tell you about how a very popular video editor called Capcut, which was literally advertised as having been remade for ARM, compatible with these laptops to take better advantage of these laptops, it was not working. If you went to the Microsoft Store and you installed it and you tried to run it, it just would not open. I literally already filmed the bit talking about this, and in between that and publishing, it has been fixed. And man, oh man, is it way, way, way better. So I don't have the original thing to show you, but a clip that took about 30 seconds to export on the x86 version of Capcut now exports in about 5 or 6 seconds. I'll just show you this. If I click on export right there, you can see how fast that is going. Again, this same clip took about 30 seconds before, and we are now done after it has been updated to work with ARM. So that is something that to me is a very big deal. Capcut now works beautifully on these laptops. For hardware, we're going to run through a handful of pretty simple, basic things, but people are asking about these, so I'm going to test them. My expectation is that all of these things are going to work, but I have this old Logitech keyboard and trackpad combo, and it does have a USB-A dongle. You do have a USB-A port here to plug this thing into, so we're going to plug it in. And as you can see, we are functioning just fine. What about a Bluetooth game controller? This is a GameSir controller. I've actually used one that was a USB dongle, but this is a Bluetooth version, and you can see the thing's moving around. That's because the controller is functioning just fine. Something else that is Bluetooth, how about the Microsoft Arc mouse? I'll turn that on. As you can see, we are now also fully functioning there. No problem at all. I've also got my first gen Surface headphones, and they've actually just popped up on the screen, so we should be able to connect to these pretty darn easily also. I expect, like I said, you're not going to have a whole lot of problems with stuff like this. I know I'm getting a lot of questions about Bluetooth accessories. Unless it has some sort of really specific, like really strange driver, as you can see down here, this stuff is just going to work fine. And when we talk about things with strange drivers that might be an issue, what about this OBS camera? We're going to plug this in and see if that functions also. So as you can see, the camera itself is working just fine. But what I want to do is I actually want to install the application and make sure that works too. All right, so we are up and running. You can see the preview there, and here is the application, which I am able to control the camera with. It's actually a pretty cool little camera. Let's aim it up here at me. Hello, hello. You can see it's working great. So this is an x86 application. It's running through emulation, and it's running absolutely perfectly. So this is kind of a strange one, but a lot of people were asking about external storage, and I thought, well, of course, flash drives work, so let's try something a bit more different. This thing basically allows me to plug in a hard drive like this SSD as if it were just an external storage. I just heard the sound, and there it is. It actually still has a Windows installation on it because that's what it was being used last for. This is just a basic USB-C hub. I mentioned in my review that it only has 2 USB-C ports and a USB-A, but you can use something like this to expand things a little bit further. If we zoom in here, you can see that these SD card readers are functioning, and I will just tell you I've tested the Ethernet on the bottom. I've tested everything about this, and it is all working fine. So we may have just run into our first real failure of this video. I was going to test my Elgato Wave3. It's the mic I use on this channel. And as I was trying to install the Wavelink application, we got this error that the driver was unable to install. So I'm going to reboot. I'm going to try this again and see what happens. And then I'm going to see if I can just plug it in and use it without the application. Maybe that's still possible. Yeah, this is just a no-go. Unfortunately, the driver, the application for the Wavelink, not going to be a thing. So here is the microphone plugged in, no application installed, and it seems to be working just fine. I'll play this back here for you to be able to hear. Plugged in, no application installed, and it seems to be working just fine. I'll play this. So this seems to be an instance where, you know, you're not going to be able to potentially install the application and do the extra stuff, but the mic itself will work. So this next one is actually visible right over my shoulder. That is a UPerfect dual portable monitor setup, and it has a driver that it needs to kind of run, right? So I thought maybe this was going to be a weird driver, maybe something strange was going to happen here. It's one USB-C cable to run both screens. I plugged it in, and within about 15 seconds, both monitors were working just fine. I was able to configure their location and so forth, and it is running both of them extremely smoothly. I kind of didn't expect that one to work, but it worked great. And lastly, let's talk about printers. This is another thing that is similar to what I just dealt with my microphone. If it can run off of a sort of default stock driver, it's going to work just fine. If you have a printer that has some like advanced features, some of that stuff might not function properly, but just, you know, a basic printer. I literally, for this video, I guess I kind of needed a printer around the house anyways. We've run into times where it's like, would have been nice to have a printer. I ran down to Walmart, bought a $60 printer, plugged it in, and it's working fine. If you have something more advanced, you may run into issues there, but at least for this, everything seems to be functional. So guys, I could probably keep doing this for hours, but these are the big ones that popped into my head, the ones that I had around that I could readily, easily test for you guys. Hopefully, this gives you an idea about how this sort of thing is going to go. What sorts of devices are going to work straight out of the box, what sorts of devices might have some problems, and also what sorts of applications might potentially have some issues as well. If you have some questions, drop them down below. I can't promise I'm going to run the app of your choice and check it for you, but there's a chance if I've got time, I might be able to do that. So drop some comments down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.